I think long form content is the ultimate conversion. I know so many agents that have millions of views on short form videos, but we crush them whenever it comes to conversion, to production, to actually homes sold. And so, that the thing is that most people are not going to buy a home, one of the biggest investments of their life, usually from a 30 or 60-second video.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of The Report. Today, I got a special guest who just traveled out from Dallas. He sold 385 homes with zero ad spend by putting out content on YouTube, on social media. He is the author of Passive Prospecting. I got my man, Levi Lascsak. Levi, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate you coming out, man. I know that you're good friends with Tyler Devereaux. How do you know Tyler?
Well, through multifamily right now. So it's he reached out to me and he just he said, "Man, appreciate the content." And I was like, "Is it really you?"
Yeah.
And it's funny because I would watch his in my multifamily journey right now that I'm on is I research. I'm a researcher, so I always like to read and watch as much as possible. I have something that I like to say a lot, which is you can hyperlearn any subject in 60 days, I believe. So if you focus everything you can, which means you go onto Amazon, say you wanted to learn about boutique hotels right now, I would say go onto Amazon. First of all, type in boutique hotel investing. There's probably a number of books on that. And I would buy the 5 or 10 books on boutique hotel investing. I would type that into YouTube and see all the boutique hotel investing YouTube videos that came up. I would Google boutique hotel investing, right? And so if I really wanted to dive into that particular subject, that's what I would do is I would hyperlearn as fast as possible. Now, multifamily right now, I'm not in a hyperlearn mode for that because I have 3 companies right now that I'm very involved in and building that. So it's more of a just almost I don't want to say a side hustle, but
Slow and steady,
yeah. Right? I'm not in a rush on that. But whenever I got into YouTube and had to make a change because of my previous business shut down in 2020, then I had to do something different. And whenever I decided to be a real estate agent, which reluctantly I decided to be a real estate agent because I never really wanted to be one in the first place, but I didn't see anything else I could really do during 2020. There's 30 million layoffs, so I wasn't going to get a job, but I didn't want to get a job anyways because I'd been a business owner. So that wasn't an option. And then what other business do you start in the middle of a shutdown, right? And real estate was one of the only industries that started to grow. So as I was keeping an eye on things, it's like, okay, real estate's starting to grow, but how do I do that? And so I wanted to figure out a plan. Then I would get into real estate versus most people usually get a license or get into real estate and then they try to figure out a plan, which is why they go out of business real quickly, right? Because they do it backwards. So I was just looking for a way to figure out something first before I got into it. And I knew I wanted to attract business. And so whenever I figured out that would be YouTube, I went all in. I studied everything I could for about 60 days. Read 8 or 9 books on YouTube marketing, watched, 500 videos on YouTube marketing, and then, read blogs and vlogs and all kinds of stuff like that. And then I built out a business plan for YouTube. Like, okay, what am I going to do? So then and I don't think a lot of people do that. And it wasn't me just saying, oh, I'm going to build a business plan. I didn't say that. It just kind of happened naturally. But I just, as a planner, I guess, and somebody that I didn't want to just fall short or fall flat, and also having friends that are successful real estate agents, that's one thing that really drove me. I was scared to death of being a failure, very quickly as a real estate agent. So I wanted to make sure I had a pretty good solid plan. I knew what I was doing. I wanted to understand YouTube as a platform. And so that's what I was looking for is like, okay, I knew before I started, like how many videos a week do I want to publish? When should I publish? What time should I publish those at? What type of content? Like I had built out 4 months of content to make before ever filming the first video. And then even like filming the first video, I would film the first month's worth of videos before ever publishing. So through all my research and learning, I just built out this plan to say, okay, I've got a good idea because there's plenty of people that teach YouTube. I mean, there's not much new about it. I mean, it's always changing, but you can learn everything you need to know. And it's the same thing with multifamily.
How much do you think, like building an audience, whether it's on YouTube or these other social media platforms, how much do you think of it as like having the right plan and strategy and the right, funnel versus just jump in and start posting stuff
I mean,
and taking action.
yeah, I mean, I think there's something admirable to that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I tried that 10 years before,
Mhm.
and that's the thing. This is where, because 10 years before I was going through this health journey, and I read this book called Platform. It's an older book by Michael Hyatt, that was talking about, getting yourself on a platform like Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. And so I was going through this health journey and I just started making videos. I was like, oh, I'm going to document the journey. But what happened was, after a couple of months, didn't get a lot of traction, didn't know what I was doing. And then you start wondering, what's the point? So yes, there's some people that just take action and start posting, and maybe they see success from that. And I'm not going to discourage that. But at the same time, I think if you build out a plan on anything you're going to do, I mean, if you're going to invest in multifamily or boutique hotels, I mean, that takes really some planning up front. If you don't just go out there and grab one, if you want to be more likely for success. So
For
I
sure.
think it is very important. And with the amount of information out there right now, you should have some understanding. But you got to understand the platforms. The platforms are very powerful, and they have, mechanics and algorithms and all these things on the back end. And if you understand that better, it'll help you make content better. And if you build out a plan in the beginning when you don't have traction, I think it keeps you on track, right? Because at least you're following a path, you're following a process. And so when you don't get a lot of views in the beginning or something doesn't pop off, you're just sticking to the plan. You're working through that.
Yeah. So I would say YouTube for us has been the most challenging platform to figure out the algorithm. Instagram, TikTok, we're growing, Facebook as well, but YouTube has been the slowest for us.
Yep.
And I can say, I haven't done we actually haven't really done any videos strategic to just YouTube. We've only been doing podcasts like the long form, putting them on there. And then we've done YouTube shorts, the same ones that we put on TikTok and Instagram. But we don't do any like 5, 10, 15-minute videos on like specifically how to, or whatever it might be, property tours, anything like that. So what do you think is the 2 or 3 keys to really growing on YouTube?
I think search-based content is really number one.
Okay.
So, I looked at your channel. So, of course, and I watched videos too. But, the one thing I would recommend too is that you're doing long-form content. So just let that long-form content be the whole video. I noticed on a couple of videos that you broke off a couple of segments, like into 8-minute videos or something like that. And that could be seen as repetitive. And even for your audience, it's like, if I watched your long form first, an hour video, then I go to that and I've already seen that clip basically, right? So then I'm uninterested, or I don't watch that entire 8-minute clip that was broken off separately. And so of course, if people jump off of that could kill that video very quickly. And so I think if what you're doing, you want to stick to just long form. If you're doing it podcast style, then just publish the whole podcast. If it's an hour, if it's an hour and a half, that's okay, because podcast, actually YouTube's the number one platform right now for podcast.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I would say like 97% of our downloads come from Apple Podcasts and Spotify versus YouTube.
Well, that's where people see a lot of their success in the beginning, but YouTube's the number one platform. That's where the most views are. And I think Rogan's really opened up that opportunity because, coming out with 3-hour podcast and the views he gets, it's proven that long form content, just keeps people on the platform. Ultimately, that's what you're doing. So I would work on those two main. Now you're also trying to capture audience as well. So the shorts can be helpful. That's where you could clip out, certain parts from that long form piece of content. And now you can actually link that short form content back to the long form. So there's a spot whenever you upload those videos that you can link the long form video in the shorts. So if somebody sees one of those shorts, they could click a direct link and go to a long form video.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, and shorts you want to look at as almost kind of like ads, unpaid ads, because they can get thrown out to a very broad audience. And, but you may not get a lot of subscribers. You may get a lot of views on there, but you're just looking to try to attract the people that maybe you wouldn't attract before. But otherwise, if you want to look at your titles and the subjects that you're bracing on, I would be focused all around what's searchable. And you can go and actually see what people are searching in your space. So if you're talking about taxes with Carlton, right? And clearly Carlton has a big name on YouTube. You can leverage that. First of all, so you want to make sure his entire name is inside that title, but also think about a couple of the key things that you talked about that is searchable, right? So that's what you want to fixate your title about. Of course, if you interview Grant Cardone, that's also a big name that's going to help with that as well. But think about the problems that you're solving and that people are searching for. And that's where titles would come into play. And so that's what all I did for real estate was looked at communities, what had the most search results. And that's the other thing you might want to think about your content as well. If you know what the most searched topics are on multifamily or boutique hotels or taxes before you go into that podcast, you could even ask a couple of those questions or have a couple of key targeted questions that you could ask your guest that has a high search volume. And so if those questions are answered directly, that gives you a better opportunity to title it better, to have content that's already searchable, because the search-based content, the audience is already there.
Yeah, that's so good. What's the best way to figure out what the trending topics are within your niche?
Yeah, we use this software called TubeBuddy. So we use TubeBuddy. You can do a lot of search content on there. I mean, you can search on Google as well. You can look up search results on there. And then also you can, you can look at, if you're going to have Carlton or someone like that on the podcast, then you could even go to their channel and maybe sort by popular, right? You could sort their videos by popular and see which topics hit the most on their channels. Then again, you could just write out one question from that or something. Hey, let me ask you about this, and so then you're a little bit more targeted on there, but then you can also kind of piggyback off of something that they've already gained a lot of traction on.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good. In terms of the thumbnail, how important is the thumbnail in your estimation?
It's said if you don't win the click, you don't win the view in the first place, right? So if you don't get somebody to click on it, now we're visual creatures, and your eyes process an image in 0.7 of a second. And YouTube actually counts an impression as if your thumbnail sits on somebody's page longer than 1 second. So YouTube's just giving you 1 second really and they count that as an impression. And if enough people don't click on it, then they're not going to promote it out later. So YouTube likes a click.
Interesting.
YouTube likes a click-through rate of 2% plus. So if you look in your analytics and you're not getting 2% plus, then YouTube's probably not going to promote that video because you're not getting the click-through rate because they're putting it in front of people, but nobody's clicking on it. So thumbnail does matter. Now you got to think about, again, the best thumbnail tells a story without words on it. So if you think about that, it's a billboard, right? It's a miniature billboard. And so if you want to think about it, like how do you capture somebody's attention? If you do put words on it, I wouldn't put more than 3 words on it. So you want to think about a phrase or a word or two that has massive impact and begins the sentence almost of your title, because we go from thumbnail to title. And you think about that, we read left to right. Same thing when you open up YouTube, you're just seeing thumbnails, or if you're on a phone, you see thumbnails on the left side. So we're always looking at those thumbnails first. So you want to think about what's the most impactful word or two, from this that leads into the title. And the title, I would structure more search-based. And with what you're doing, you're doing education. I'm doing education. I'm just doing education on Dallas, Texas suburbs, right? Smaller audience. There's a much broader audience for investment, for multifamily, for hotels. And so you just want to think about those search topics. But if you want to capture attention, now, if you're interviewing someone that has a well-known face, of course, having their face on the thumbnail helps out. But think about something they said, in the video that was impactful, or a word they used, or something that could help kind of tell that story. And so yeah, I think with what you're doing, it's you would just want to look at how could you almost tell a story within that thumbnail, and then they look over at the title, and the title says, how to, or how we did this, or learn how to do this.
That's good. That's good. So thumbnail, no more than 3 words, general rule of thumb, and then in the title, how long should that title be? Shorter the better?
I'm torn on that. So I go back and forth. There's a book called YouTube Formula written by Daryl Eves, he's Mr. Beast coach, and he has like 17 YouTube channels with over 1 million followers. He's got like 17 gold plaques. He's also the producer for The Chosen. And he actually did you ever see that Squatty Potty ad with the unicorn?
No, I never did.
You never saw that? Oh, it was one of the most viral commercials ever. anyways, Daryl leaves, he's been on YouTube since it started, 2005. So in his book, he says titles should be like 60 characters or less, which means if you look on a mobile phone, it usually won't cut off. You know, it won't have a ... So you can almost see the whole thing. If you look at Mr. Beast's title, he usually has very, very short titles. I like longer titles. YouTube gives you up to 100 characters for a title, and we usually max that out to 90 to 95 because we're kind of packing it with a few keywords. So we may have...
You want to maximize your keywords.
We do.
Bigger reach.
Yeah, because look, I don't expect to go viral, talking about Dallas, Texas suburbs. And I'm not really looking to, right? I'm looking for intentional based engaged audience that's looking to buy or sell a home. Right. Period.
It's a small niche.
Yeah. And it's taken us 3 years to break 30,000 subs, but we've almost done $2 million a year in commissions from the YouTube channel.
Now, the stuff that we're talking about right now, though, I mean, this applies to all content creators out there, anyone that's interested in building a brand.
As far as
just what we've been discussing on this podcast so far, I mean, this is a much broader reach than, the suburbs of Dallas real estate, right? So do you put out content on this too?
On brand building?
Yeah, on YouTube and all that?
Well, I have a separate YouTube channel really geared towards, I would say more towards real estate agents right now, but it's called Passive Prospecting.
Got it.
So that's a separate channel, separate audience. So I would never put that type of content on my real estate branded channel. Yeah, because it's a mixed message. And I really don't want my real estate clients knowing that I teach, how I'm attracting them, right? And I teach that to other people. So no, a separate channel. And then, yes, I teach on there. And the reason I wrote Passive Prospecting and I was going to call the book like YouTube for real estate, but that's way too niche down. It'll never be on a airport bookshelf, right? So Passive Prospecting came to where any business owner, doesn't matter, electrician, plumber, financial advisor, boutique hotel, investor. If you pick up that book and read it, you're going to understand what it takes to have a successful channel.
Yeah, I love that, dude.
With real estate investing, asset protection and protecting yourself from personal liability is huge. The best way to address this is to correctly set up your LLCs and entity structure. For us at Summers Capital, we use Prime Corporate Services to set up, manage, and provide guidance for all of our entities, making it truly hands-off. If you want to learn more, visit Prime Corporate Services/Rich Summers to book a free call and receive a special podcast listener offer. Again, visit primecorporateservices.com/Rich Summers to book a free call. Now back to the show.
I saw you're a veteran. You fought in Iraq.
Yes.
Thank you for the service, by the way, man. That's awesome. How long were you in the service for?
6 years.
Which branch?
Army.
Yeah. That's sick, dude. And what was it about that led you to what you're doing today?
None of that led me to what I'm doing today. It was just it was a fluke, really. It was, I grew up in this small town south of Dallas called Stephenville, Texas. I joke around and say, if you're not milking cows or riding bulls, there's not much else to do there. Like true country town. Friday night lights, is bigger than, there's a college there, but, people would pack out the stadium. We played at the college stadium and would pack it out. And then on Saturday when the college played, there'd be like 4 people in the stands, So, I got out because my parents didn't go to college. My 2 older brothers didn't go to college. We were actually raised with the poor mentality, which could never afford anything. Like I grew up on garage sales. All my clothes came from garage sales. I never had a brand new pair of shoes on the first day of school. And, I didn't feel like I missed out on anything, but I was also taught that we would never afford college. So I worked about a year after high school doing labor jobs, stocking shelves, mopping floors. And I was like, I can't do this for the rest of my life because that's what everybody else in my hometown does. Right. And so it was 1999 and I was like, well, I'm going to join the military, get some money for college. I thought the world was at peace. Nothing was ever going to happen again, and 2 years later, September 11th happened. Yeah. And then of course, after that, 2004 is whenever I got deployed to Iraq and I spent a year over there. So I would say from that just changed my I was 24 years old when I'm in Iraq. And so I was a sergeant and I ran gun trucks. I was infantry. And when you run gun trucks in a combat zone for 12 months, it just changes your whole perspective. And if you've never been in any type of situation, I look at what's going on in our country right now And to me, it's all so petty. Everything, both sides, I don't care who you root for, both sides of the aisle right now, everything's just so petty. It's like, just stop it, people. You go over to Iraq and you go to a place where there's no trash control, right? There's no waste management. There's no animal control. People's homes are built out of cinder blocks, not even with mortar to connect, like literally like cinder blocks just stacked on top of each other. Their roofs made out of tin, like metal tin, or even they would cut down palm tree leaves and that could be their roof. Sleeping outside because it would be 130 degrees during the day. And their house would just...
It's barbaric. No climate control.
No climate. So it would bake during the day. So it was so hot that they would have to sleep outside at night. There would be packs of wild dogs, like 50 dogs running around, going through all the trash that everyone just threw out in the alleyway because there was no... And you just watch how other people live in these other countries. On top of that, there's war going on all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, right now you got the whole thing with Israel and Gaza. The stuff in North Korea that's never going to end. Either Ukraine stuff. I mean, it's all over.
Look what so it just changed my perspective.
Yeah, it does.
It changed my perspective on, don't get bent out of shape on your Starbucks coffee. There's bigger problems, but also,
I love that.
I hated it while I was there, but when I look back now, it's one of the most proudest moments of my life. But also, I just think about, man, to make it through that, it just seems like a whole different world. That was 2005. I think about that now and I'm just like, man, that seemed like so many lifetimes ago, but it's something that's always grounded me. I've always just remembered those moments and when you're a young guy like that, it changes you.
Dude, perspective is everything, man. And even for the folks that aren't, in the service, I think just going and traveling and seeing different countries, going to some third world countries, even if it's only for a couple of weeks, man, like it will change your perspective and you come back home and be like, you know what, the way you view things, the way you appreciate things, you're just a lot more grateful for the little things, right? That we take for granted here.
Yeah. Try traveling now and you don't get internet service
Yeah.
right? in some area and you're like, oh man, this sucks, but I love traveling. I've been to 24 countries and I love different cultures.
What's your favorite country out of all those?
Man, it really depends on the subject matter.
Okay. Which one would you live in out of all those?
Well, Belize.
Belize? Okay. Well, we already talked about that.
Yeah, Belize. Yeah. So, I would say Peru was probably my favorite dining experience, like the food.
Why is that?
Just the food was so diverse. And also the reason I went there, have you ever seen a show on Netflix called Chef's Table?
No, I've heard of it though.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not a cooking show guy or anything like that, but I just caught this series. It's very well, and I like it because I learned how chefs are like artists, really. So it's a docu-series on the best chefs in the world. So one episode is on one chef for like an hour.
We had Brian Malarkey on the podcast recently.
Oh, yeah.
Is he on that show?
Probably.
I know he's on a bunch of food shows. Anyways, okay, keep
going. But I saw this one episode, this guy named, I think Virgilio or something is his name, from Lima, Peru. And he immediately started talking about Peru's the most diverse country in the world because you have the ocean, you have the Andes Mountains, you've got the desert, and you've got the Amazon, right? So you got these 4 different major ecosystems that run right through the middle of Peru. And he sources all of his food from all these different regions, right? He goes into the Amazon and like picks leaves and grass and stuff and goes to the ocean and picks, and his whole menu is built off of these ecosystems. And it just blew me away. And I was like, that's the whole reason I traveled to Peru, was to just go to this restaurant.
That's sick, dude.
And he was ranked he's the number 1 restaurant in the world right now.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the name of it? You remember?
Central.
Yeah,
Central.
It's in Lima?
It's in Lima, yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
Just
I do want to go down there and hike Machu Picchu at some point.
Yeah. Make sure you plan that, because that was my plan too, and I didn't realize how much
of a trek it is.
Yes.
Because you should go to Cusco for a little bit, right? And then acclimate there and go.
Yep. What would be cool though, you could do if you really want to make it a trip, is they have like a 10-day trip that will take you around the Andes, because you either have to fly into it and then acclimate for a day or two before you can hike it, or you can take this 10-day trip that takes you like on 10 different stops going around the Andes Mountains, and you get to see like the Rainbow Mountains. You get to see like, you stop at there's this oasis, like literally it's complete desert. And then in the middle of the desert, there's this city.
Wow.
with palm trees and everything, a literal oasis.
That's crazy.
And so they have these different spots. So if you have time, you could do that. If not, but I didn't know that. I just went for the restaurant and I was like, oh, we'll just do Machu Picchu on top of it. And we learned, nope, there's a lot more to that. So we didn't plan accordingly.
I'll have to check that out. I think 12 days might be a little bit too much for my blood, but I like the idea of flying into Cusco, maybe acclimating for a couple of days and then going up from there. I don't know. I love South America, man.
Yeah.
Medellin, Colombia is one of my favorite cities in the world.
Yeah, I haven't been to Colombia yet, but that's on the list.
Yeah.
Brazil's going to be on the list.
It's good that you went to the other ones first,
Yeah.
because you go to Medellin first, which is what I did. They say it kind of spoils it for the rest of South America.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Brazil's cool too. I've done Rio. I do want to go back and see some of the other parts. I was in Buenos Aires most recently, but I do want to do like Chile. I want to do Peru. I haven't seen the west side of South America.
Okay.
Yeah. Ecuador too.
Yeah, I mean, amazing.
Yeah. I got a buddy that's actually in, Jack McCall?
Not personally.
You mentioned
no.
Carlton Dennis. But anyway, so Jack's a good friend of mine. He's been on the pod. He lives here in San Diego, but he's actually in Venezuela right now.
Oh, really?
In Caracas. I'm like, bro, you're crazy.
I know.
He's doing like skydiving out there. I'm like, you're crazy.
I would not go there.
I haven't heard of anyone going down to Venezuela, but I'm like, good for you, dude.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. It's like, man, you could miss these opportunities I was on this travel tear until 2020. Like I was trying to travel every 3 months or so, just at least for a week, 10 days. But when I worked with teachers on retirement planning at the schools, I had a teacher schedule, but like 5 times the teacher's income. So I had summers off. That's whenever I was doing a lot of traveling, Christmas breaks, things like that. So I worked like 8 months of the year. I was living my best life, and then 2020 came and just shut it all down. So I had to pivot there. So yeah.
So when did you get into the real estate stuff as an agent?
Yeah, in 2020, whenever that all shut down. Yeah.
And so, I mean, to sell 385 homes in that short of a time, that's a lot of volume.
Yeah.
Is that with a team, or is that just you?
Yeah, I only sold one of those homes personally.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been all a team. So what happened was when I started making the content, I was planning, I was ready to be that agent, like I was ready to open some doors and write some contracts. And what happened was I got the very first deal. The funny thing, this is what I loved about YouTube. I got a text message, and the text message said, Levi, love your videos. There's a house at 123 Main Street, new construction. Can you get it for us? That was the text message. So I called the builder and they said, that's not available. The home across the street is available. So I texted them back and said, hey, the home across the street's available. And they said, okay, cool, we'll take it. And that was it. We sent them the contract. We did everything, DocuSign, sold my first house like that. And then I met he's now my business partner, Travis, at right around that exact same time. And he just got into real estate. And then he was like, as these deals started coming in, he was like, hey man, you want me to, I'll go out and I'll open up the doors and show homes and things like that. And I started thinking, I was like, you know what? I really don't want to do that stuff anyways. I like just kind of making the videos. So I was like, yeah, sounds like a good plan. So he started taking the clients out. They would come into town based on my videos, and they'd be like, hey, love your videos. And I'd be like, well, cool. You're going to meet with Travis. He's going to take you out. And then Travis just started working deals, closing deals. I mean, just started doing it left and right. And then after about 8 or 9 months, we were just blowing and going at that time, and just made sense to partner up because he didn't want to make videos. And I really didn't want to open doors and write contracts and show homes. So, and it just worked out that way. It wasn't my intention in the beginning, but since then I haven't had to do that. I haven't had it. And now we had to have a team because we've got so many leads. Like in 2022, we averaged 5.5 leads per day from the channel.
That's great. And that's organic, warm leads.
Yeah. People calling in, 5.5 people a day calling in saying, I want to work with you. And 2 people can't handle that.
So I'm curious because, I put a lot of educational content out on real estate investing, and not just hotels, and not just real estate investing, but, wealth and just literally everything, even other stuff, random lifestyle stuff too. But I'm always trying to provide value. And so I think when you do that, it's a lot easier to grow as a content creator when you're providing value. But I see a lot of agents on social media who some of which I follow, but a lot of them, they're always selling something. They're selling something. And no one wants to, follow someone that's always pitching something, right? And so you don't see a lot of growth. And so I guess my question for you is, you've been successful growing a bunch of organic lead funnels through your audience through this YouTube channel as an agent. What kind of content should an agent be putting out in order to grow and to actually generate warm leads? Because I know it's not you up there just selling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. What type of content should they put out
Yeah.
there? Yeah. I mean, I think what we focused on is we focused on community tours. So the thing is, like, anybody can go online and look at Zillow or realtor.com, and which is what most people do. That's where they typically start their journey. But if they really want to get to know an area, they start going onto YouTube and start researching. I think long form content is the ultimate conversion. I know so many agents that have millions of views on short form videos, but we crush them whenever it comes to conversion, to production, to actually homes sold. And so, that the thing is that most people are not going to buy a home, one of the biggest investments of their life, usually from a 30 or 60-second video, So the thing is that, and I can show them. So when people start ready to make a decision, they're like, okay, I can look at this home on Zillow, but what's it like in the community? What's it like around the neighborhood? What's this close by? I can look on a map online, but again, does that tell me the whole story? So whenever I go out and about and just walk my community and say, hey, look, here's this area, here's what's to do, here's the spot, here's all the hot spots, here's the stuff. I'll take you in some neighborhoods, walk you through the neighborhood so you can see all the other homes. You can see, is an HOA really a bad thing? So they get to see that whole, and I may do it. This may be a 30, 45-minute video, and I give them a complete tour. I get on the
pros and the cons.
Yeah.
Not
Pros
just
and
the
cons.
pros.
Yeah. Pros and cons. And then even like map videos, this is something that blew me away. Is I would get on Zoom, just Zoom, and share my screen and make a video myself of the Dallas map, or I would zoom into a suburb like Frisco, Texas, and I would just start drawing on the map and saying, okay, here's Frisco. It's 30 minutes to downtown Dallas, and here's this cool spot. And then I'd zoom in, and so anybody can look at a map of Frisco, Texas, but they don't have my viewpoint, my perspective, my stories, my experience, and that's what I'm sharing with them. So I think I did it as an experiment, and I thought this is going to be really boring, And to most people, it would be a very boring video, but somebody researching, ready to make a move, they'll watch that entire video. It's very interesting to them. So when you're providing value-based content, we actually call that service-based content. That's a chapter in the book, is service versus selfish-based content is exactly what you just described. So on the YouTube channel, we have value-driven, service-based driven statements. So if you look at our banner, like our banner says, subscribe to learn about living in Dallas, Texas. Yeah. You see, that's a service-based statement that if somebody goes to the channel for the very first time, they know exactly why they should subscribe. Plus it serves them, versus if I put Levi and Travis, top producing real estate agents, here's our phone number, here's our email. It's like, to me, that's like a premature sales pitch. Yeah. Like, here's my email and phone number. Call me if you want to buy, sell, or invest.
No one wants to be sold.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. But they love shopping with friends, right? So I love that saying, right? Nobody wants to be sold, but they love shopping with friends. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm taking them shopping with me. When I take them out and about, they feel like they're walking right beside me, because I literally hold a cell phone on a selfie stick like this, and it's like they're right beside me, and I'm just walking them through the community. So I think service-based content that provides the value up front, and sure, you can have a call to action in there, and that's okay, but you've got to provide that value up front.
What about like local favorites? Like, these are my top 5 favorite local restaurants in Frisco, Texas. Stuff like that.
Yeah, I've not done that. No. And the reason being is because
those could go more viral, right?
They could, yeah. But again, that's not the audience I'm looking for. And the thing is what I believe, and this is really all theory, right? But I believe that when people are looking for to make a move, they assume they're going to be in an area probably with good restaurants. They're not. They don't really care about the top 5 restaurants in there. They care about the community, the neighborhood, the school district, the commute. Those types of things that apply. I think most people assume there's going to be good barbecue restaurants or nightlife or things like that. So yes, if I made that video, I wouldn't make a long form video. That could be a short form video. It could be a short 60-second or less. But again, if that goes out there, even if it goes viral, it's not my target audience. And I've never really looked for views or subs. I've been looking for conversions. So I stick to what I know people are researching. There's not a lot of search volume for the top 5 restaurants in Frisco, Texas. So yes, viral aspect, but I'm not trying for viral.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. And so, and I always say, like, in today's age with technology, we got AI, we got social media. And so as an entrepreneur out there, if you're not utilizing the technology to your advantage, it's going to be really challenging for people to compete with someone like yourself or someone like myself. So I say, man, like you almost have to, as an entrepreneur and a real estate investor these days, you have to be putting out content.
Yeah.
And if you're not, I'm like, well, why are you not? And I always say, like, even if you're not the one that is comfortable being in front of the camera, that's okay. Maybe you partner with someone that can do that. And you had that partnership with Travis, it sounds like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's funny because he's tall, dark, and handsome and good looking guy, but he just doesn't like to get on camera, and he does it a lot more now, but in the beginning, I mean, it was a real struggle for him. So it's yeah, if you do that, I mean, I think I say this all the time, which is the most visible agent is going to win. It's not the best real estate agent. It's going to be the most visible one, because I came into the scene, zero brand, zero recognition in a market like Dallas, where there's top brokerages, top agents, been crushing it. And I just slipped right in there. And here's the thing. The very first phone call I got was in 30 days of the channel. I had 48 subscribers and it was $1 million client. They had $1 million budget. They didn't say, hey, Levi, why do you only have 48 subscribers? Or how come you only have a couple hundred views on your channel? Or how come you've only been making content for 30 days? Or what brokerage are you with? Or how long have you been in business? They didn't know that was my first month in the business. They said, Levi, that video you made on that particular neighborhood is the neighborhood we want to move to. We found a lot of value in that video. And so we thought, why not just give you a call?
That's so good.
Yeah. And so I looked like the expert from the content I made. Now, here's the thing. Also, I didn't make content trying to be the expert. I made content on what I didn't know how to be an agent. I didn't know how to be. I wasn't a top producer. I wasn't, hey, I've sold 5,000 homes in the last, I wasn't that
You're
person.
Not trying to flex on them.
Yeah. But guess what? I've lived in Dallas for 20 plus years. So I know Dallas. I've been through all the neighborhoods, right? I've got friends that live over there, family that lives over there. I've, partied in that neighborhood. I've worked in that neighborhood or whatever growing. So I've been through every aspect of Dallas. So I stuck with what I knew, which was Dallas. And that's what I made the subject around and talking about it. And that's what attracted people. And they assumed I'd been in the business for years and years and years. They never knew that I had just started and was just doing that. So I mean, that definitely worked out.
Hey guys, real quick, the only way this show grows, the only way we continue to bring on bigger and better guests is if you guys rate, review, and share the show. So if you could take 2 seconds or the click of the thumb to review on Apple or Spotify, it will mean the world to me. But more importantly, we'll be able to reach more entrepreneurs and more real estate investors and help them build wealth through this podcast. Now back to the show.
What do you tell the agent out there that knows they need to be putting out the content, but maybe they never get around to it, or they don't feel confident enough doing it?
Well, there's two different things there. So confidence or getting around to it. First of all, if you say I don't have time to make content, I would say that's exactly why you should make content, because your time is not leveraged if you can't even make a 20 or 30 minute video once or twice a week. I mean, really, how bad is that, right? So, but the thing is that I don't think there's a better return than making video as far as anything else. It's actually, that's another chapter in the book, is YouTube does not take time. It makes you time. Not only does it make you time, it compounds your time. So when you look at the back-end analytics, like of our channel, like last year is watched 104,600 hours. Well, if you divide that by 24 hours in a day, that's equivalent to almost 12 years worth of prospecting. So the thing is I also didn't make 104,000 hours worth of video. If I make a video and it takes me 30 minutes to make that video, like this podcast will take us an hour to make. Let's say we go for an hour. It took an hour of your time. As soon as it's watched 1 hour and 1 minute, you've profited 1 minute of your time.
More output than input.
Yes.
Leverage.
And now if it's watched 11,600 hours, once you hit that point, that's equivalent to 1.34 years. So this 1 hour we spent together, if it's watched 11,000 hours, that's giving you 1.3 years worth of prospecting.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
That's so good.
That's a compound effect.
I'll give you another example. So on my Instagram, this is Instagram only, in the last 30 days, we've reached 2.8 million accounts.
Yeah. Wow.
So think about if there was no social media and I was going to go have lunch or coffee with one person at a time and have conversations about what I'm doing in the real estate space, how many people could I have coffee with or lunch with in 30 days? Probably maybe on the best case scenario, 200, maybe 300.
Yep.
Think about that. So 2.8 million in 30 days because I'm pushing out content on social media versus the handshake model, which was, pre-social media. It's crazy to think about.
Absolutely. And I know, because I just looked at it, the channel for the last 3 years, remember whenever I talked about impressions earlier, YouTube counts an impression whenever they have your thumbnail. If somebody's just scrolling with their thumb and blows by it, they don't count that. But if somebody opens up their desktop or their computer or their phone and that thumbnail sits there for 1 second, that's an impression. In the last 3 years, YouTube has given us 40.3 million impressions for free. Like, we haven't paid a single penny to push that out there. That's like putting our thumbnail in front of 40 million plus people in the last 3 years. Where else could we ever get that reach at no charge? And that's why I love YouTube. YouTube is the most content creator friendly platform, in my opinion. They want to promote your videos.
That's good to know, because that's the one we got to figure out.
Yeah. Well, guess what? I mean, do you get some reach on Instagram and Facebook? Yes, but also they want you to pay to play a lot of times. Like, there's almost no reach on Facebook, right? Instagram, it's like back and forth. Instagram doesn't even know who they are right now. Every single week, it seems like you've got to do something different to please the algorithm. Like, all of a sudden you had to do these carousels. Now you got to do a photo and
see, I think Instagram's relatively easy.
Oh yeah. Okay. All
yeah.
Right.
You think YouTube's easy. I think it's hard.
Yeah.
And you think Instagram's difficult. I think it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to swap information or something.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I think TikTok, we should have gotten TikTok sooner, but I realized TikTok's very sensitive. So if you put a good piece out there, it will go right away and reach a lot of new audiences. But
so many haters on TikTok though.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever gotten a positive comment on TikTok. It's just everyone's like, you're stupid.
One thing I find interesting about the demographic of the listeners or the viewers on these different platforms is, like, you got TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and then you got podcasts like this, you know, different platforms that you can listen on. But I would say out of all these different platforms, I would say the podcast is the most sophisticated and probably the highest net worth audience. And then also you're gaining a lot of trust because they're listening to hours and hours. And then I would say probably YouTube's right behind it maybe. And then I would say at the bottom is probably TikTok because it's the youngest, you know? So it's kind of interesting. But to your point, you said it's hard to build trust with a 30-second TikTok or a 45-second reel. But you get people to go listen to your podcast or your long format, maybe your YouTube, and then that's where you really build the trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the video builds the relationship for you.
What do you mean by that?
That means that the more people watch, the longer they watch content, the more the relationship gets embedded. So that's why when people call us, they've already made a decision they want to work with us, right? Because it's all inbound. I don't know these people exist until they call us. But whenever they call us, they're like, Levi, I love your videos. There's so much value. Thank you. We want to buy a home. You know, these investors, when I started making multifamily videos, would call and say, Levi, that video is so informational. I would trust you with my money. Mm-hmm. And all they've done is watch video. It's why, it's why celebrities, I mean, it's why shows like Friends and Seinfeld are so popular because, and if you've ever had a show that you know, here's the thing, I'm providing information, and even if people don't like me, if the information is good or giving them what they need, they'll continue to watch. And guess what? That relationship will develop over time. Because if you know this, because anybody with a spouse, right? Because the spouse, let's just say the missus starts watching Real Housewives, you know? And the guy's always like, that's the stupidest show in the world. I would never watch that, you know? And then 3 episodes later, they're walking by and they're like, what did that person say? Oh, and then they watch for 5 minutes, right? And then by the end of the season, you know, they're like watching a full episode. And then the next thing you know, they're going, hey, when's the next season coming out? You know? And that's the thing is, like, you could even, if, you know, you get caught up in the drama, so to speak. But also you look at these shows like Friends, it's 6 different people on there. Why? 6 different personalities. They're casting a wide net to relate to people. So that's why it became such a big hit, because everybody felt like they related to one of the characters. And then they started to really dial in because of that character. So I'm capturing people that are researching. They're not looking for a personality. They're not looking for, you know, a showman. They're not looking for an entertainer, but they're looking for the information.
But at the same token, I think it does help if you can be more relatable.
Oh, sure.
Even with
Absolutely.
the stuff you're doing, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because you're dry, vanilla, boring, and not exciting. You probably have a less likelihood of a chance for someone to continue watching versus the other person that is a little bit more engaging when they're presenting the same information.
Well, you'll actually probably attract the dry, boring people out there, right? So
that's true.
Like attracts like.
Yeah.
So that's the thing is yes, because I've seen a few YouTube channels out there seem boring to me, but could have a lot of views or subscribers or look like they get a lot of traction, especially real estate agents. Real estate agents are usually one or the other, either really good personalities or kind of, dry and boring. So, but that's the other thing is like all the clients that come to us are fun to work with because they're pretty much like us as well. Because like attracts like. People relate to certain personalities. And that's why I say to people when they're like, well, should I start a channel? Because there's so many other real estate agents that have channels. And I'm going, wait a second, there's like 3 people in your area.
Yeah.
That's not saturated, right?
Well, it's almost like, dude, you almost have to compete these days.
Yeah. Well, you have to. Like, what else? You're going to compete on anything you do. Cold calling, door knocking. You think nobody else is cold calling and door knocking or sending out postcards? Of course they are. So, I mean, for me, think about it. I always relate it to HGTV. Does HGTV every year say, I think we have enough real estate shows, let's not come out with a new one, or do they come out with a new real estate show every single year?
New one every year, man. Let's rip them.
And you know why? It's the same thing. They're all flipping shows, right? They're all, renovation shows, but different couple, different town, single person, different town, married couple, whatever the case may be. Some argues a lot, others get along. So they're putting all these personalities out there because they're trying to capture a wider audience.
Speaking of HGTV, I've had Tarek El Moussa from Flip or Flop on this show. He was episode number 2.
Nice.
He actually reached out to me on Instagram not too long ago. He's like, hey, dude. He's like, what are your thoughts on partnering on a boutique hotel? He's like, we'll put a bunch of media behind it. And I thought, maybe that'd be a good idea. It'd be interesting. Because he's doing a lot of multifamily stuff, little self-storage. I'm like, boutique hotel, like renovating an old tired hotel and making it nice again, I think would resonate even more with his kind of like flipping audience than the self-storage stuff. So I don't know. That is interesting, intriguing. But dude, I don't know if I want to go on TV, man. From what I hear, the folks that I know that have done these shows, and they're like, it's 12 hours every single day recording, no cell phone, just like you don't have a life. And I don't think I'm interested in that, to be honest.
I filmed with HGTV.
You have?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we did one episode for House Hunters, and they reached out to us because of the channel. So, and that's a 30-minute show.
And how long was the filming for that?
Not really supposed to. I'll tell you offline. I'm not supposed to talk about it, but I'll tell you offline.
Okay.
But I also just did a segment with our local news channel, which was pretty cool. And that was super easy because the news anchor that reached out to me, she's the anchor for like Good Morning Dallas. Like Good Morning America, but it's for Dallas. So it gets 1 million viewers every morning. And she reached out because of the YouTube channel, right? And she's like, I'd love to do a segment on North Dallas and everything like that. I was like, cool. We knocked that out within, 2 hours? Because she was like, I'm a little unconventional. Let's just do it, knock it out. And so it just depends. Like for her, that was super easy. We were able to, do 4 segments out of a 2-hour time window. Super efficient. And then you have someone like, yes, HGTV. I've heard Pace Morby talk about this for A&E. I've heard him talk about that, and it is exactly what it's like. So, and I just did 1 half-hour episode for House Hunters and open up my eyes. Yeah.
Now I'm curious because I know a lot of eyeballs are coming away from TV and into social media and into cell phones and that sort of thing. And I think that trend's going to continue. I'm curious, so like that 1 30-minute segment with HGTV House Hunters, did it open a lot of doors for you? Did it bring in a lot of warm leads?
I mean, I got a lot of text messages from, it was funny, friends. Yeah. And same thing with TV. Like I didn't even know people watch the morning news, right?
Yeah.
So, but it was funny because people were sending me screenshots and they're like, oh my God, that's you on there, because we didn't really make a big deal out of it. I haven't seen, nobody has really called us and said, hey, I loved your episode on House Hunters. I think people watch that for entertainment. That's not really where researchers are going to learn about the different markets because every show is random.
They're not watching to do deals.
Now the segment on the local news, yes, we got the first segment aired last week. We got like 200 subscribers in one day. You know, I don't know. I haven't checked with the team. I don't screen any of the phone calls. So I'll have to ask them, hey, did anybody call in and say, saw you on the news, I would love to do business. So I'd have to check on that. We track everything though from the YouTube channel. We know what, you know, if they come in on calls, text, emails, Zoom calls, you know, we look at all of that from that matters. But otherwise, it's all just exposure. I'll take any free press I can that I can work in there. But
I love it.
Yeah, and also, and then like Kara, who worked with me on the morning show, you know, we built a relationship during that time, and she told me, she's like, well, hey, I'd love to have you in studio and maybe do some more regular things. So if it could turn into something, I mean, I think there's always opportunity there. So you never know. So I'm going to say yes, and we'll see. I mean, I think it'll build a long-term brand. I mean, you look at like Ryan Serhant being on $1 Million Listing. I mean, definitely helped him build a brand. And he's turned into one of the biggest agents in the world. Yeah.
Blown up. Oh, yeah. Well, dude, I appreciate you coming on the show, my man. Where can listeners get in touch with you, Levi?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me, Levi Lascsak, on Instagram if they want to get in touch. I always usually send people to book.passiveprospecting.com. So
good looking book too, by the way.
Thank you,
I got it right here, man. Clean. I'm gonna have to take a look at some of these chapters, man. You were dropping some good YouTube knowledge there earlier.
It's a very practical and tactical book. I mean, the only thing I regret about the book is I really didn't get into my personal story or anything like that, or all my history. I basically just went into straight practical and tactical. But you know, it is what it is. But I think you pick up that book, you'll definitely have a better understanding of how to run your channel.
There it is. He's Levi Lascsak. I'm Rich Summers. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.